Hello, and welcome to the most nerve-wracking video I've ever recorded. My name's Nicole Willett. I own a marketing company. Been in business for 15 years. In that time, having worked with hundreds of clients, but also working with dozens of website developers and marketing companies, and all of that as part of my work. Also, I've been mentored by some very ethical people. And this last little while, I've noticed that I have some clients who've been getting scammed on various levels for years. And it's been bothering me for a while. And having talked with a couple of friends about an idea for this video, they said, Nicole, you have to record this. So, what I've done is I have pulled together some sketchy parts of some user agreements from some very large marketing companies with much bigger legal teams than I will ever have. So, I've changed their names. I will be talking about what I think makes something sketchy and how I think you deserve to be treated as someone who's receiving website or marketing services from an online or a real life provider. So let's get this party started. First of all, I'm going to acknowledge that it's really hard to buy something that you 100% don't understand. I can empathize with you because this is exactly how I feel when I walk into a car dealership. I feel overwhelmed. I know I need to buy a car, but I don't know all the questions to ask. And while I did some research before going in, I have to actively hope that the person that I'm talking to is not going to screw me over. And I think this is how a lot of people feel when they start dealing with web people. So, something I've thought of, well, for my car thing, and that might apply to you in this web services hiring thing, is I actually have my brother in law negotiate when I want to buy a car. I tell him what I want. He deals with the dealer. He has all the back and forth conversations, and I just show up and pick up the car. You can hire a consultant that will basically do that sort of thing for you, but on the sort of web services end. So if you're thinking about hiring a company, also hire a consultant. I know it feels like an extra expense, but having someone look over the stuff and point things out to you that maybe you don't entirely understand because the consultant has a lot of experience, I think is worthwhile because even if you spend a few $100, you could potentially save thousands of dollars in the end. So I would say if that makes you comfortable, do that. Otherwise, if you're DIYing, hopefully some of these tips will be helpful for you. I see two companies behaving badly in this kind of scenario, and they're two very different kinds of companies when you think about it, but they're behaving similarly. Number one is there's this sort of national marketing company that's trying to cosplay like it's a local company. And they'll do this typically one of two ways. They'll either partner with a local media provider like a TV station or a radio station or a newspaper, something like that, and they'll be providing services under their banner, or they will have a local sales rep. So you've been emailing with Tom, who lives two towns over, and you're going back and forth. Then you sign on the dotted line, and suddenly Tom goes poof, and suddenly you're dealing with someone across the country. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought I was dealing with Tom. He lives two towns over. Tom is the salesperson. So, and I've seen this kind of thing happen a fair bit. And typically these companies have very generic names. SM Interactive, Your Marketing Local, it's something like that. It's typically something very generic because they're trying to make it work everywhere. Now, the second group, completely different, is your local smarter than you web developer with a small shop. These two groups of people couldn't be any different, but their behaviors of toxicness will be the same. So let's talk about it. Now, I'm going to go over my signs of sketch so that you know what I think is sketchy. If somebody's doing one of these things, it's like, okay, but if they're doing several, I think that would give me pause. So, first of all, something I've noticed is that when a company is sketchy, they will want to own your domain name. So, they'll do that one of two ways. They'll list your domain as being privately registered so that even you can't see who the domain is registered to unless you're the one who bought it. Or they will insist that you transfer the domain you already bought to their account. Now, it's your business. You should own the domain. What you're allowed to do with the domain is you can add what's called a technical contact. So, for example, you own the domain, but you make me your technical contact so that if there's a problem, I can call the website hosting company or whatever. And if I'm listed as the technical contact, they'll talk to me. I'm like an authorized user on the account, but I'm not the owner of the account. So I think it's very important that you keep the domain name under your full control. The other thing that I've seen is proprietary website software. So they will say that they have a custom CMS or they make their own software in-house. And I know that that sounds fancy, but the problem with that is that if you ever want to move on, you can't because they have their proprietary software. And you'll find that if you want something, like you see that your friend has this really cool thing on their website, you'll say, "Oh, I want that on my website." Unless they've built it, it doesn't exist yet. So I say in general, stay away from anything that's proprietary. Now, if you wanted to use WordPress or Squarespace or Drupal or whatever platform, someone can customize it for you, but the software itself is not custom. I hope that that makes sense. Companies that play fast and loose with your passwords. So, for example, they're like, email me your passwords. Well, I don't know if your email is two-factor authenticated. I don't know how many people check that email. I don't know how long that email is stored. So in general, when I start working with a client, I say, hey, we use one password in our company. Or if you want to send it via encrypted message, we can do that. Or you can text me the password and email me the username or something like that. So if someone is not playing carefully with your passwords, they're definitely not playing carefully with their own passwords. Now, another sign of sketch is a lack of access to your own website or, a partial access. And you might say, well, Nicole, like I have a Joomla website and I don't know if I have full access to it. So what you're going to do is you're going to log in and you're going to look at what version of Joomla you have. Let's say it's Joomla 3.0. Then you're going to go into Google Images and you're going to search Joomla 3.0 dashboard. And it's going to show you what the full dashboard would look like if you could see everything. So if you're looking and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I only have 4 items in my menu and the Joomla 3 dashboard has 8. Another thing typically that a website developer will restrict you from doing is uploading plugins, adding new users, or updating software. So if you can't do those kind of things, typically you don't have full access because that's a kind of full access thing. So what you can do is you can insist, hey, give me full access. And if they're unwilling to grant you full access, that's something that I think is sketchy because let's face it, if I bought a car, or let's say if my brother-in-law negotiated a car for me and I wanted to drive that car somewhere stupid, that's my fault. And I'm going to pay to get the thing fixed if I break it. And that's how I feel about a website. You deserve to have all the keys to your car if you want it. It's your car to drive. And I know that our server does nightly backups and keeps them for 2 weeks. So if you do something terrible, at the very least, we can restore it to what it was the day before with no problems, as long as obviously you tell us sooner rather than later. So an unwillingness to grant full access to me says that they don't trust you. Now, if you're a web developer and you're like, oh, Nicole, I don't want to give them full access, you can take a full backup of the site. So before we launch any website, we take a full backup and we throw it in Dropbox. And this happened to a client. So I built their original website. I took a backup, threw in Dropbox. 4 years goes by, and the new company will not give them access to their files. Guess who had a backup? It was 4 years old, and some stuff had to be changed, but at least we weren't starting from nowhere. So if you're a web developer and looking for a way to deal, I say, run a backup and, keep it somewhere in case you need to restore it. Another thing, getting the runaround about support. Listen, I get it. Like sometimes I'm not the best at answering emails, but if you call me and say, hey, I'm running this workshop and I need this form to be online by Friday, that form's going to be online by Friday. You should have a good working relationship with whoever's updating your website, and you shouldn't be getting the runaround about support. Another thing I've seen done is having assets set up in the marketing company's name versus your name. For example, a Facebook remarketing pixel, a Google Analytics account, and things like that. What I typically do is, in general, we make a very generic Gmail account and we make everything associated with that Gmail account. And then we hand it to the client and we're like, hey, if you want to move things to other emails, that's fine. But if anyone leaves your organization and that email gets deleted or whatever, it at least was originally owned by this Gmail account that nobody can delete, that you have access to. So if you're not sure, for example, you see with the Meta Pixel Helper that you have a marketing pixel on your website, go in Meta Business Suite and see if the pixel's associated with your account. If it's not, the marketing company did it. I think it's gross. It makes their life easier, but it means you can't move away from them. So another red flag for me is a constantly changing point of contact. So that makes me wonder, is this person getting paid well enough to live? Are employees treated well at this company? If they keep leaving, why do they keep leaving? So that's just a bit of, what's going on? To me, another red flag potentially is a company not participating in sort of the internet ecosystem of trying to make things better and more accessible to people. And the most concrete thing I could come up with was Let's Encrypt, but there's other initiatives as well. So let's just actually take a look at that real quick. So Let's Encrypt is basically a free secure certificate provider. And there's literally hundreds of web hosts and clearly millions of websites that are using it. It renews itself, and it means that you don't have to keep buying a secure certificate if you're trying to sell things online, for example. It is just freely available. For example, my web host works with Let's Encrypt, but GoDaddy does not. So there you go. And I have two soft warnings. This one is just makes me smirk when I see that. They work at one of the top 100 companies in the US, or they work at the top 50 tech companies for human resources or whatever. I always think that, ooh, this company is trying way too hard to get its employees to realize how lucky they are to work there. And then putting the name of the marketing company in the website footer or other obvious places like they own the content. Now, I did work with a designer circa 2013 who insisted that we do this. So there is probably 2 or 3 websites out there that have breaking even communications on the bottom. I don't personally believe in it. If you want, you can put it in the code of the theme. So if someone right clicks and views the source code, they can see we designed the website. So there you go. That's kind of my take on it. If the client paid me to build the website, I'm not going to put my name on the bottom of it. I think that's kind of gross. So those are my signs of sketch. And obviously, some of these are more important than others. I would say the sort of making sure you own your domain, making sure you can access your website, making sure you can access any assets that have been set up in your name, like a marketing pixel and Google Analytics. To me, those are pretty important. So if any one of those things is off, I feel a little something in my stomach about it. I don't know how to explain it, but anyway. So you might ask yourself, well, Nicole, how do I know I'm dealing with a sketchy website company? And I would say that your very first clue will be found in the user agreement that you are about to sign. So let's take a look at some clauses in user agreements together. By the way, these are from 4 different companies. Now, this one is a little mild, but it gives me some pause. And let me read it to you now. Certain services made available via marketingcompanywebsite.com are delivered by third-party services and organizations. By using any product, service, or functionality originating from marketingcompanywebsite.com domain, you hereby acknowledge and consent that Marketing Company may share information and data with any third party with whom Marketing Company has a contractual relationship to provide the requested product, service, or functionality on behalf of the Marketing Company users and customers. Are they selling your data? They're sharing your data with companies they have a business relationship with. I don't know. A clause like that would give me pause. And part of the reason I delayed doing this video is because I would love a lawyer to take a look at some of this stuff with me. But if you see a clause like this about your information being shared with third parties, I would ask a little bit more about that. The sales rep is being paid to deal with you, so they should be able to answer your question. And if not, they should be able to direct you to someone who can. Now, let's take a look at a more problematic clause, which is that the company develops stuff for you, but owns it. So let me read it to you. Marketing company furnished material means collectively the marketing company website and all its contents, materials, elements, features, and functionalities thereof, but excluding client furnished material contained therein. All marketing company names, marks, logos, designs, and brand images. Okay, no problem so far. All links and advertisements provided by marketing company. Okay, I'm not sure why there's links and advertisements from the marketing company on my website, but okay. All marketing company systems as defined below, and all hardware, software, tools, technologies, processes, methods, techniques, and know-how provided by marketing company, whether for use by marketing company or client or otherwise in the rendering of services. And this is the big one. All results, work products, and deliverables of the services, including and without limitation, all client properties, source code, object code, HTML files, Java files, data files, scripts, programs, templates, user interface designs, themes, page layouts, and look and feel, documentation are created by marketing company. but excluding client-furnished materials contained therein. Client-provided materials might include things like logos, might include things like maybe you wrote up some page content, maybe you gave them some photos to work with, but they put together the website, so they own that. Yeah. And most people don't understand this because I am talking now to my fourth client from this provider who thought they were paying to have a website built. And now I'm quoting them on a brand new website because I have to rebuild it. And they are mad at me. They should be mad at this company, but I am the one, as the new service provider, left holding the bag. Do you know anyone who would rent a website? Right? You paid a developer to make a website. You think that you own the website. This company? No, you do not. I've rebuilt websites for 3 of their former customers. And it's work I do while mad because, like a plumber unclogging a toilet, it is money, but it's not my favorite way to make money at all. Let's look at some other problematic clauses. They own your domain name. This clause, let's take a look. Client may select the domain name for the client website, which marketing company shall register if available in the client's name and maintain and manage for the client during the term. To the extent client has already registered the client website domain, client shall promptly after effective date give marketing company full access to the domain account and authorize marketing company to maintain and manage the account during the term. Upon the expiration or termination of the agreement, marketing company shall turn over control of the client website domain name to the client. This is another provider I've worked with, and they do turn it over, but they are not going to help you move email. They are not going to help you with anything. They're going to give you a month when you give them notice to move things over without giving you server access. So love that for me. Because then I get to look like the jerk saying, well, we can't really move your email, so maybe you should put it onto your computer or into a Gmail, and let's just hope it works. Because they're not going to let me on the server, even though you should have your own section of the server and they should be able to let me on no problem with your authorization. But what do I know, right? Let's read some more. Oh, they're going to market your stuff to other companies. Marketing company and corporate affiliates may use client account information, except client billing and payment information, to offer, market, and advertise to client other products and services of marketing company and or its corporate affiliates, provided that client may opt out of receiving marketing communications from marketing company and its corporate affiliates by changing the client account preferences or by contacting marketing company. It is expressly understood and agreed that such opt-out by client will not affect marketing company's notices or communications to the client regarding their account. Well, isn't that nice of them? They're still going to contact you about your account, even if you opt out of their marketing messages to their company and third-party companies. They're going to sell your contact information to you. Beautiful. Love that. So ethical. All right, let's read another one. They will not help you move to a new service provider. They will not be helpful in any way. So, as a reminder here, in section 1.2 of this agreement, which you didn't read, the client properties means the client website, social media sites, and location-based sites like Google Business, stuff like that. So just keep in mind that's what client properties means. Marketing company will cease all of the services, permanently deactivate and terminate the client properties, and permanently delete the client account and all client furnished material from the marketing company website and the marketing company systems. Client shall have no further right or permission to access or use except for the client furnished materials. They shall not be able to use the client website, including any templates, designs, or look and feel contained therein, marketing company website, any marketing company furnished material, or any services, and any of the marketing company systems. So while I haven't dealt with a company that was maintaining Facebook pages or something like that, I'm wondering if they would delete your Facebook page because that falls under something that they are now managing. So if they've created content for your Facebook page, I don't know if they're just going to delete every update they ever wrote for your Facebook page while you contracted with them, or whether they'll just delete your Facebook page. That's a little unclear to me. Maybe if you work at one of these companies, you can leave a comment. Or if you're a lawyer, and want to go over one of these agreements with me in a live stream, let me know. Oh, let's read another one. Okay, so they will use subcontractors, but they will not tell you they're using subcontractors. So let's talk about that. This is yet another agreement. So, service provider may use subcontractor to provide contracted business services. For each subcontractor used, service provider will give customer, upon written request, an up-to-date list disclosing the subcontractor's name, address, and contact information, the type of services provided by the subcontractor, and personal information categories disclosed to the subcontractor in the preceding 12 months. So, unless you expressly ask if someone's using a subcontractor on your work, they will not tell you that that is happening. So for me, I have 3 employees who are on staff, and I have a subcontractor who happens to be my web host that I use on a very regular basis. So if I'm working with a client on something and someone else is doing work, I will say, "Hey, Jessica's gonna be working on this. Hey, Ben's gonna be working on this. Hey, Matt's gonna be working on this," so that people know what's going on. And that way, if someone's logging in from a different IP address that's not my usual one, that they know that that's happening. So, and a list of these people is on our website, and no one outside of these people is doing anything on any of our client websites. Oh, and also, as a final clause, you can be used in their marketing materials. So let's read about that. Client acknowledges and agrees that during the term, marketing company and its corporate affiliates may mention or use client's name in sales, marketing, advertising, and promotional materials, including and without limitation, sales, marketing pitches, presentations, and client customer lists for the purpose of identifying client as a customer of the marketing company. So yeah, and, I might mention that I'm working with somebody, but maybe not specifically what we're doing with them. I'm definitely not gonna mention their numbers or any other proprietary information. This, client that I'm potentially gonna be working with asked for some references, and so I provided them with references, and I asked the people first before I listed their names, and honestly, to their credit, it was like a Friday night, and I emailed or texted them, and they had all gotten back to me within 2 hours, so that's how awesome my clients are. So, in terms of a takeaway list, what can we learn from these clauses as well as my experience dealing with a bunch of douchebags? Well, this is your short list. First of all, you need to know your domain name, your web hosting, and your software providers, and make sure that you have full access to all accounts and your name on your domain. And keep your logins in a safe place. I bought my domain name at Namecheap. My web hosting company is Savaha. I use WordPress software, but I bought software licenses to Gravity Forms, Backup Buddy, and Events Manager Pro. And here are all the logins to all of those things. Now, when we do this for a client, we've set them up a website. We typically give them a list of all their logins and we're like, congratulations, here you go. Put this in your safe. Or if you're going to reset your passwords, write the new passwords down and then put that in your safe. Keep it someplace safe. And ideally, that's a password management system, but if you want to keep it in your safe, that's fine. I mean that more of a metaphorical sense versus a physical sense, but you get the idea. And that way, if some weird domain registry of America thing comes in the mail, right? You're like, wait a minute. I didn't register my domain name through Domain Registry of America. I registered my domain name through Namecheap. So I'm not going to pay this weird bill I got in the mail because that's someone trying to scam me. So knowing the list of your providers is super helpful because then when other people contact you, you can be like, no, this is not legit. If you're not sure if something's legit, forward it to your friendly website person and they will tell you if it's legit or not. People do that to me all the time. They'll text me a screenshot and say, hey, is this a real thing? They'll forward me an email and I'll write back right away. No, don't pay that. Yes, that's legit. Pay that. I don't mind keeping track of that for you if you're a client, but you can also keep track of that yourself too. The second thing is make sure that you're paying a fair rate for whatever services that are being provided. So, for example, I had a client who was paying $199 a month for website monitoring and updates and directory updates. And I still don't understand what that is. And I do this all day. So you can ask them, hey, you're updating my website. Is that just software or are you updating content? How many content updates do I get for a month in this package? What directory listings are you updating them? How often are you updating them? You need to understand what you're paying for. And if you don't feel like digging into these questions, you can hire a consultant who can help you dig into these questions. But it's really important that if you're getting a regular bill, you understand what you're paying for so that you know when you're not getting it. Number three, if something horrible happens, the best case scenario is you have a backup that we can restore, like my client did that left for 4 years and came back. But second best is that you have saved all of the logo files, you've saved all of the pictures you sent them for the website, you saved all of the text that you wrote for the website somewhere. And the fact that you have all these pieces mean that rebuilding is going to be a lot easier. If we have to do it, that takes longer. So, unfortunately, make sure you read your agreement. If a small provider doesn't have a detailed agreement, ask them to make clear what you own versus what they own as part of their work. Ours basically says that if we made it for you, you own it if you paid for it. If you haven't paid for it, you don't own it. But as long as you paid your bills on time, everything we create for you, you own. We do agreements for everybody that is over $600. But make sure that you have a detailed agreement in place about what you own, what they own, and ideally some kind of exit clause and how that works. So for example, that, they can terminate the agreement within 30 days written notice, and so can you, and sort of how things get settled out if they've done more work than you paid for and vice versa. Like I said, smaller providers might not have agreements, but that doesn't mean you can't ask for one. I think it protects everybody. That's what I tell people is like the agreement is there to protect you in addition to protecting me. So add two-factor authentication to everything. If you have two-factor on, we can generate backup codes to be able to get into your stuff, or you can add us to Facebook Business Manager. Make sure your email has two-factor authentication on it. Two-factor anything you can, and you're much less likely to get hacked or have people who you don't want have access to things because they'll have to ask you for the code. And, the question to ask yourself is, are they just busy and lightly disorganized, or are they a D-bag? And if you ask them for your information, like, hey, I want to update my records and I want to make sure that I have my website login, web hosting login, and all that correct, their reaction to you seeking out this information will tell you everything. Someone like me is going to say, okay, cool. Like, here's your stuff. I did have one client who every single month would be like, what's my password? And after the 10th time she asked me, I started billing her for the time because it was taking a lot of my time to tell her how to check her email every single month. In general, this isn't a problem. Like, if you ask for something one time, I'll just give it to you. But like, if it's a problem, like I'm becoming your secretary, I'll be like, hey, I'm going to start billing you for this. And guess what? Magically, she could remember her password after that. But in general, I'm just like, oh, yeah, here's your stuff. Or, hey, I don't want to send this over email because it's kind of sensitive. Like, do you have a password management system or something? But if they're weird about it, that tells you that they've got something to hide. Anyway, those are some things I think that you should know to not get scammed. I can't provide you a list of every company I think might possibly scam you because honestly, that list would be out of date by the end of the week because there'd be all these new companies that were there to scam you. So, what I want to instead give you is sort of behaviors to look out for and information that you should keep for yourself to make sure that you have the right level of access if you do want to terminate services with a provider. So in closing, I just want to remind you that if you have a trusted web provider, that they want to collaborate with you on your business. And if you have ideas of things you want to do, talk with them about it. They might have an interesting way to implement it online or to make it more clear to people visiting your website. And ultimately, they're in this business because they want to help you succeed. So, bring them in as you're making those decisions rather than saying, oh, this is how it's going to be, because sometimes they might have a really informative view on how to make that process better online, which will translate to a better experience for you and your customers. So just keep that in mind. Thanks so much for watching. If this video was helpful, I hope you share it with a friend or two. I might do a follow-up episode where I talk about people's stories related to scammy marketing companies, because I think that could be interesting content and give us some additional insight into this topic. If you have a story, feel free to fill out the contact form on my website. I'll assume if you share your story that you'll want it to be anonymous, but if you tell me that I can share your name or information, I will do that. So if you want to participate, great. If you don't, that's okay. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day and see you next time. Take care.